Hello everyone, I'm here today with Sarah Guth, our Literacy ISS for Europe East, and we are here to provide a 20-minute advanced introduction session on Benchmark Advance overview for special education, giving special ed teachers the essential information on the key features of what they need to know. So Sarah, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Aaron. Thank you.
All right, and can you first tell me what is Benchmark Advance?
Well, Benchmark Advance is our elementary literacy core curriculum. So we adopted this curriculum last year, and so we're all still really learning all that it has to offer.
And it does seem very feature rich, and I'm excited to kind of jump in today and highlight some of the key features.
Yes, it is so rich and so dense, and so it's great just to take some small bites and learn a little bit at a time.
Terrific. So the first question I typically ask is, how do special ed teachers access this wonderful resource?
Well, we utilize our student Google account to log in through Clever. But I understand that sometimes that's problematic and people may not be able to access with their student Google account, in which case there is a demo account that could be used to access. And so you have two different options, and if you need the demo account information, you can contact your ET who may have that information, or you can always contact your Literacy ISS as well, and they can provide you with that information.
All right, so to clarify, make sure you've logged in to Chrome using your student Dodia account information. Then go to clever.com for Dodia. And if you are able to log into Benchmark that way, that is a preferred method. But if that is not working, we do have a demo account for special education teachers and for paraprofessionals. You would then go to the Benchmark Universe Dodia site and you'll enter your username and password. All right, now how do students access this if you want students to use this program?
Well, students have their own login. If the students are in kindergarten through second grade, they have a login, and they can actually have a QR code, which makes it a lot easier for them to log in as long as the computer that they're working on has a camera to capture the QR code. And teachers, the classroom teacher would have access to the login information, and they can also print out the QR badges for the students. And for third through fifth graders, they actually use their Google student account as well, just like a teacher does. And so they go to the clever.com website and enter their Google information.
Terrific. And I have seen those QR codes in action with a group of kindergartners just the other day, and it was like magic. All of them instantly logged in. It was terrific. And so I think that you highlighted on one thing that's going to be a recurring trend throughout this training is collaboration with the general education teacher, because as a special ed teacher, do I have access to specific students, or am I able to assign anything to students, or is that up to the general ed teacher?
That is still a responsibility that lies with the gen ed teacher, because the rosters in Benchmark Advance are driven by Aspen. And so the special education teachers really do have to work collaboratively with their classroom teachers to get assignments made or to gather data on perhaps how students have done on assessment. And so that's really going to be very vital.
So for the special educator accounts, you're having access to all the curricular materials. But if once we start getting into student performance, customizing student assignments, things of that nature, that really does come from the general education teacher account and needs to be in collaboration with that teacher. All right.
Absolutely.
Well, terrific. I'm going to go ahead and click on Benchmark, the icon within Clever. It's going to log me in, and we're going to do some exploring. So we are on the main Benchmark Advanced dashboard, and I have these four icons. Could you tell me what some of these are for?
Absolutely. So the library icon is an easy pathway to the collection of leveled readers for teachers. The middle one, the Benchmark Advanced icon, it leads you to all of the teacher curriculum materials. The English language development icon goes directly to this ELD kit that we talk about. It supports some of the curriculum for English language learners, but also really for any learner. And then the Benchmark Advanced Action, these are videos that you can view, and there are first grade samples and fourth grade samples of actual components of the curriculum being utilized in classrooms.
Terrific. And so where should we explore first?
I think we should probably hop into Benchmark Advanced.
All right, here we go. So we're within the Benchmark Advanced icon right now, and there's a lot of information here. Can you kind of walk me through what I need to do to make sense of all of this?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that really helps is along the left-hand side, there are categories, and they're actually filters. So you can start to limit what you will see on the dashboard by selecting grade level, unit. You can even narrow it down to the week if you'd like to. But so for example, if you were to select maybe third grade.
Okay, I'm going to select third grade. All right.
You'll see it's starting to pare things down. So now those are only the third grade teacher manuals, which Benchmark Advanced calls the teacher manual, the TRS. It's the teacher resource system.
Terrific. So whenever I see that TRS, that's just the teacher book. Okay.
Exactly. And so then you can further limit if you want to look specifically at a unit. You can select one of those unit numbers, and you'll see that you'll get a more focused view of what resources there are.
All right. So I'm going to filter even more. I'm going to go to Unit 3, and I'm going to go to Week 2. All right. So yes, I can see that big list of resources has definitely been filtered down.
Yes, and then what you'll see on the right-hand side where all the materials are listed, they have a subheading. So, for example, you've got whole group teacher resources and then whole group weekly presentations. There are all these instructional settings that are categories. And so if you wanted to filter even more, you can use, on the left-hand side, one of those instructional settings as a filter. So if you only wanted to look at just the whole group resources, you would select whole group.
Okay. And there we go. Now, as a special ed teacher, do you see them using one instructional setting more than the other? Are they using a lot of whole group, or is it mostly small group intervention? Do you have any recommendations for what they might be filtering into?
Yes, I think if you're trying to be informed on what's happening in the class, you'll probably be in the whole group information, because that will give you kind of a view of what are the whole group mini lessons that the classroom teacher is utilizing. And then when you think about, as a special education teacher, where's my focus going to lie? I could see you probably spending more time in small group.
Okay.
I would also say intervention may be another area that you would spend some time in.
Okay.
And the third place that I would say you might spend some time in is the designated ELD.
And ELD is short for?
English Language Development.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so although perhaps those resources may have been created with English language learners in mind, I think that there are a lot of supports for striving readers that you'll find in that component.
Terrific. So we are now going to explore some of the eBooks available within the Benchmark Advanced system. One thing we want to point out is that there's an ebook format for Benchmark Advanced books it's the same within the whole group materials and the small group materials. We decided that for special education, many of the teachers might be spending more time in the small group resources, so we're going to use that as our example today. Do you have a preference of what book we choose?
Nope, any one of them is fine.
Okay. The rabbit lost his tail. Looks good to me. So we select the book, and it's going to open up in a separate tab, and it's going to be opening up in an e-reader format from Benchmark Advanced. And I want to highlight a couple of the accessibility features right off the bat. First of all is typically those SPED folks that work with me a lot always hear me referencing Read and Write for Google, which is this little toolbar at the top that provides text-to-speech and different studying annotation tools. I'm going to say for Benchmark Advanced, do not use this for the curricular materials. It doesn't work well within this e-reader format. Fortunately for us though, Benchmark Advanced comes with built-in text-to-speech. And I don't know if you could hear in my audio, but it was actually, I had music. So it's not just the computer reading aloud, it came with music, and we have real voice actors that are going through and reading the text
About the
aloud.
genre. Pourquoi tale?
And you'll see that it does highlight as we go through. And if we're looking for visual accommodations, if we need to enlarge any of this text, I'm going to go to the wrench over on the right hand side, and I'm going to use the zoom button to be able to zoom in and make this text a little easier to see. So just right off the bat, know that these curricular resources have built-in text-to-speech, and they have the ability to zoom and make things larger for our students. All right. So Sarah, would you mind telling me a little bit about the text annotation tools within these e-readers?
Absolutely. So when you're looking at the reader, on the left-hand side, you can see the little blue block there.
Yes, I'm going to go ahead and click on the blue block. Close reading notes. Okay.
Yeah, and so this is a perfect place where students can actually type in the notes that in the classroom they might be taking annotation notes in their little magazine where they actually write in the book. But this gives them a digital format for doing that same thing.
And is this saved to their account?
Yes, if a book has been assigned to the student, then it would save to their account. And when you first log into the book, there's a little box that popped up. It was a gray box that asked if you wanted to customize the book. Anytime that you're making annotations like this, then that's what they consider a customization. And so you can preserve the notes that you've taken.
Terrific. And as the classroom teacher, do I have the ability to then look at those notes, the student notes, at a later
Yes.
time? Okay.
Yes.
And as the SPED teacher, then I'm not going to have access to those closed reading notes, but I can talk to my general ed teacher to collaborate on whatever information has been posted on there. Is that
Absolutely,
okay?
yeah. Or if maybe if you're with a student and doing a little conferring with them, you could ask the child to bring the book up in their own account and share with you some of the notes that they've made.
Terrific. Now I do have one question. As the classroom teacher, can I embed notes for the student within their book, or is it only the student is able to put in notes?
The teachers can actually embed the notes as well, and so when they create their customized version with those embedded notes, then they can assign the actual customized version of the book. And within a school, teachers can share customized books within the school. If you were working perhaps like part-time at one school, or if you had a friend that was working at another school, you can't share it across schools. But within schools, you can share customized content in the school library.
All right, and this sounds like we're getting a little bit more complex with sharing and things of that nature. So hopefully our general ed teachers would be a great resource for this, or our ETs, or I again want to just point out our literacy ISSs could be a resource if you want to do a lot of this advanced sharing and have students do this digital text annotation, but you're not quite sure how to proceed. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely, and I think especially in our first year or two, people are getting more and more comfortable with using the digital resources. They may not be to the point where they're ready to do customizations, and that's okay. I mean, even if we can just get in and start trying some of these resources, then we can always build on later.
All right, and I do see that we do have the ability to use pens, highlighters, type text directly on here, so it looks like it gives us a lot of different tools for doing digital annotation as a student or as a teacher even modeling some of this. Are there any other digital annotation features you'd like me to highlight at this moment?
No, right now one of them is grayed out. There's a little screen that can drop down, and so it looks like perhaps maybe in some of the other pieces you might be able to have some shades and that kind of thing to block out the view.
Okay.
So that was.
And that is one thing, actually, those of you that are Read and Write Google users, you can use the screen shading. Actually, you cannot. It looks like it is blocked here. So again, for the the Read and Write Google does not work well and does not like this e-reader template within Benchmark, but the positive side is Benchmark does embed a lot of these resources for everybody. And I guess that is a question. Are things like text-to-speech and this text annotation, do they have to be turned on by the teacher, or is this a universal tool for all students?
No, this is on for all students.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
So,
I think sometimes it's just a matter of helping them practice a little bit. So, especially with some of the annotation tools, getting in there and just trying it a little bit, we might have to support them at first. And then I think sometimes the kids just they take off with it maybe even faster than we know. And that's okay too.
that is okay. So we've talked a little bit about these digital resources, but I'm a little confused still on if I'm the student, I log into Benchmark Advance, and do I just see this book that's been assigned to me, or how do I, if this is the book that I'm working on right now, how do I get there?
So when a student logs in, they will see a message that they have assignments. But the other thing I think is really great is that if a teacher hasn't assigned the text to the students, they can still access any of the leveled readers that they're interested in by clicking on the My Library button, which we had on our login when we first logged in too.
Okay.
So it's really a nice feature because then students can access all of the leveled readers, even from other grade levels as well. And so it kind of reminds me of Mac and Via in that it's got this big warehouse of books, and if we can show kids how to access them, they can make themselves connected to the books that they're interested in.
So the student would go to that library, and then they're able to search for the books that they found. And that's if the teacher has not, the general ed teacher has not assigned that book, or the instruction is moving so fast the teacher might not be keeping up with some of these assignments. The student could then go in and find the book through the My Library. So we've either through the teacher or through the student searching, that's how that student would find that book.
Absolutely. And if you would go back to that other screen for just a moment where
Sure.
you were showing how. So when you got into the library page, on the left-hand side there's a drop-down menu, and it defaults to Advance and Action. Those were those videos. So if you bring it back down to Benchmark Advance, let's see, the leveled eBooks.
Leveled eBooks, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're fine. Thank you for showing this to us.
A little bit further down. Up.
There we go.
There you go.
All right.
And then they can get into all and those actually, you might notice too that the Reader's Theater books are even in there as well.
Terrific. And on a side note, I happen to really like the Reader's Theater's books. They do have the professional narration and the different voice actors, and I like that the different parts have different levels, so you can have heterogeneous groups doing Reader's Theater, working on fluency. Fun stuff.
I love that too, Aaron.
Okay, so we've kind of went on a little side trip here, going to My Library, showing how the students could then find any book, and that they can use the units or the levels as a filter, or they can search through a keyword. Going back to the digital text, we've highlighted some of the built-in accessibility features. We've identified that Read and Write for Google is not a useful tool for the Benchmark Advanced ebook. There is one other icon that's really standing out to me here, and that is this teacher resource icon. Can you explain what this is and what this does?
Absolutely. So when you click on that, it will bring up some text-dependent questions.
All right, so it is loading up this is what I guess the teacher or the paraprofessionals would be using to support instruction for that book. Is that a correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and so you can look at the questions online. It also gives you the ability to print out if you wanted to have a hard copy. So the tabs across the top show the focus of the different areas. So if you wanted to, for example, look at what should I do with my first read, then you could click on the first read tab.
Okay, I'm clicking on the first read tab.
And it goes through really what's your focus, what kinds of questions, where are your stopping points, those kinds of things. And it does that for the multiple reads. So you've got your first read that we're looking at right now, but then you've got a close read and an extended read. So, and then it even gives you some ideas for independent learning. And if you are really a digital person and this works for you, then that's one option. If you scroll up to the very top of the page, I know some of us like to have a hard copy of things, and so if you click on the print button up at the top, it gives you PDF versions of these tools, and that is what the classroom teachers received as part of their set for small groups. So it's kind of nice to have, or for example, if you like some of the text-dependent questions that they're providing, it gives you an option that you could maybe copy and cut apart some questions for your students to use with the books.
This is terrific. This gives, as a special ed teacher, I know I'd have really appreciated being able to have this set of extended lesson plans and ideas for supporting literacy in the classroom or in small group or pull out, or even as having my paraprofessionals and trying to prepare them for what type of instruction to provide in the classroom or support to provide in the classroom. This looks like a very rich resource.
Yes.
So as Sarah and I were talking, we thought we'd want to highlight the assessment component within Benchmark Universe. And so I'm back at my main screen, and I'm going to use my filter to go to the assessment. Then I'm going to scroll very up to the top. And one thing that Sarah, you were mentioning is had some value in the classrooms is this informal assessment. Would you mind speaking for a moment on how it's being used and what kind of data is collected?
Sure. So there are a lot of different kinds of checklists within this resource that people are finding helpful and useful, because oftentimes it gives them some look-fors when they're working with their students. And in particular, in Section 4, they have a small group reading observation record. And so if you were maybe pushing into a classroom and you had a couple of students that you're working with, it gives you a band of reading levels. For example, right now we're looking at the A through C band. And then it outlines some reading behaviors that you could notice or support within your group. And it's a nice little record-keeping piece, because then you can just list the names of the students in your group and gather some data on their reading behaviors over time in your small group.
I really like these reading behaviors, how they've kind of task analyzed and really delineated the different components for successful readers, and really helped create some data sheets. As SPED teachers, we love our data sheets to help drive our instruction and document our IEP progress. So I think this is a really nice tool to be aware of. I'm going to go ahead and click on the back button. And I think, Sarah, you were mentioning that these all can be printed out. They can be accessed digitally or printed. And we want to make sure that we're not going to go through all of these today, but as a SPED teacher, as you're looking at what to investigate within Benchmark Advance, this assessment component, these informal assessments, might be an area that you want to spend a little time.
Yes.
So another essential SPED feature that we should all be aware of is the essential ELD, or the designated ELD, excuse me. So I went to the main filter on the side, and I selected designated ELD, and it brought me all these wonderful resources. And Sarah, can you kind of explain what I'm looking at?
Absolutely. So the English Language Development Kit was designed to support English language learners, but what they've done is they've taken the grade level text that classes are working through, and they've anticipated some areas where students might struggle, and then they've put in more visual and more language supports to help students access the grade level text. And so when you look at the English language development text, the student text, side by side with the close reading text in the classroom, they match right up with each other. And so as a special educator, if I was going in and working with students and I had an idea of what close reading work the class was doing, I might want to use the ELD book to prep the students maybe a day or two in advance, or I could use it as a great reteach and bring the kids back to the text and really make sure that they had a solid understanding of the text that they worked with in their whole group mini lessons in their classroom.
So the text is different between the ELD and the whole group, but the concepts and the standards are the same. Is that correct, or is it actually similar text?
It's similar text. In fact, it looks very much like what they are accessing in their classroom.
Okay.
And then it provides perhaps like some more visual connections or zooms in on certain aspects of that grade level text. So it's really kind of a great way to help keep kids connected to the work that they were doing in the whole group mini lessons. But it gives them that extra support of language or visual support.
Wonderful. I think that looks like a very valuable resource for our special education teachers. So as Sarah and I were talking, we thought it might be helpful to show the difference between the whole group lesson and the ELD or English language lessons. So right now we opened up a book that has a short read for whole group. And Sarah, would you mind kind of walking me through what I'm looking at here?
Yeah, so this is the text that teachers would use to work with students in the whole group mini lessons. And so they would go through and read. Typically, they would maybe model a strategy and work with kids and do some guided practice along, doing some annotations in the book. And so you can see it's a short read, but it is still several pages of text. And it's grade level text, so it's not a simple read for the kids. It's a level that allows for instruction. And then the ELD book that aligns directly to that, as you can see, it's still short read 1, and it's called the same, it's the same story, but it's in a more compact version. They have the visual supports there all on that left side, and then on the right side there are some specific language supports built in, because the philosophy of Benchmark Advance is that when we have a student who's struggling or who's an English language learner, we don't just give them an easier book per se. We still grant them access to the grade level standard and the grade level text, but we provide them some scaffolds and some support to be able to do that successfully.
And I see up here, actually I don't see the green apple. So if I am a special education teacher or an educator and I want to know how to maybe teach this or some lessons to go along with that, would I then use the teacher book within the main menu?
Yes, absolutely. And so you've just clicked back to show exactly that the title for the teacher is right there.
Okay, terrific.
And it's got that little TRS button there in the bottom left corner of the image. So.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure our educators knew the difference between the whole group, the short or the ELD materials, and where you can access the teacher guides to teach some of those lessons. All right. So Sarah, I know a lot of our special education teachers are always looking to have fun and new engaging ways to support students with special needs. And these Heidi Song videos and interactive learning games, do you feel there's value in these right now, or for the special ed folks, should they be spending most of their time up in this first set of filters?
I think I'd prefer if they're spending more time in the upper set of filters. I think the Heidi songs and the interactive games could be resources that perhaps the general education teachers could use with students, maybe like in centers and that kind of thing. But when we have the valuable and expertise of one of our SPED educators or paraprofessionals in our classrooms, I think that we could really get more bang for our buck in those upper resources like the ELD kit and the intervention kit and those kinds of things.
So Benchmark Advance is just so robust with all these features. I know I'm feeling a little overwhelmed, but there's something down here called intervention that I wanted to ask you some questions about. I've selected it. What does the intervention section do for me, or what does it provide for me as a special education teacher?
So I think one of the big takeaways for me was that the intervention kit has got quick checks, and they have quick checks on a variety of different things: reading, fluency, phonics. And so the quick check is your quick assessment, and it can kind of alert you of some areas that you might need to provide intervention support. And for each of those areas or those skills, they then provide you some mini lessons that you can use to intervene with students. And so, for example, I have my fluency quick check. I give the child a quick assessment, and I realize that they need support in area C. I go into the fluency intervention book, and it provides me with some quick 10-15 minute lessons that I can use to support the child in that area C that was red flagged in the quick check.
So it comes with the assessments. I give the assessments, identify a need, and it has the mini lessons to support remediation for that skill area.
Absolutely.
Awesome. That's a great resource. So one of the last areas we want to talk about for today is the assessment component within Benchmark Advance. And so using the side filter, I've gone ahead and selected assessment, and I've opened up one of these e-assessments for an example. Now, Sarah, a question I have for you is, how do the students get access to these assessments?
So the general education teacher has to assign the assessment to the students.
Okay, and so once the general education teacher has assigned the assessment, we then have the different assessment component, and you'll notice that there isn't a read aloud option. So if you have a student that needs read aloud, I'm going to use Read and Write for Google, and you might have remembered earlier that Read and Write Google does not work for the curriculum access, but it actually does work pretty well for accessing the assessment. I can use the hover speech, and I can hover the mouse over it, and if it's not working, those of you that know, the best way to troubleshoot is to hit refresh. I'm going to refresh that page, and I'm going to reopen up Read and Write for Google once this page is loaded, and hopefully it will then provide text to speech. So I wait for it to open, hit the purple toolbar, going to use hover speech, and there we go.
This question has two parts.
So it does have text to speech if you're using Read and Write for Google. Even if you're using the free version of Read and Write for Google, all of these will be grayed out, but you still have access to hover speech if text to speech is needed. Under the settings, you do have the ability to adjust the font size and the contrast. You do have tools here to provide a line reader that can be enlarged and adjusted for those students that need to reduce visual distractions. You have a highlighter, and you have an image magnifier, which does not magnify the text, but actually magnifies the image that the student might be referencing. All right, so now the student takes the test. What does it look like then?
So once the student takes the test, then the general education teacher receives the scored items. If there's a constructed response, then the teacher actually does have to go in and score that his or herself. But if it's only been multiple choice items, then the computer does the scoring for them.
And you mentioned something in our initial walkthrough. It breaks down the test questions, the students' responses by standards?
Absolutely. So there's lots of different reports that teachers can run. I think that's one of the most powerful ones, that they can look at performance connected to the standard on just that assessment. They can also look at performance over time. So if I've given my students 3 different unit assessments, I can look at how they did on those standards on just that unit, or I can look at it for the 3 units that I've given.
Terrific. All right. We are wrapping up our overview of Benchmark Advance. And as I said, this curriculum is very deep in terms of resources and materials, and we can't cover it all. And we hope for 20 minutes, and now here we are at 30. So the last resource I really want to share with you today is the Schoology site, where there are videos, other trainings, materials, updated references on how to best implement and use this tool. So we're going to navigate to Schoology and show you how to access. So I'm logged into Schoology, and I'm going to navigate to the top course section. And now what do I do, Sarah?
So you'll go to My Courses.
My Courses, which is over on the right-hand side. I'm going to left-click on that. And then
so then you're okay. So you join a course.
I'm going to left click and join a course. And we're going to put the course access code within the show notes, but you can see it here as well. You're going to insert that course code, hit join, and hopefully you're going to get that green button that says you've successfully joined that course. So within my courses, I see the K-5 ELA Materials Training Benchmark Advanced. I go ahead and select that section, and it is going to take me now to all of the initial trainings. Sarah, anything that stands out? If I'm a SPED teacher and I'm short on time, where should I look first?
So I think a great place to look is in the additional training or support videos and tutorials folders. You might even look in the administrators' webinars, because sometimes they'll record a webinar and it says it's administrators, but it can be anybody. And they may do a quick webinar on how to access reports or how to use a certain component. And so I would say those 3 folders have got a lot of your videos or tutorials that people might be interested in.
Well, this has been really helpful, Sarah. I appreciate your time, and we've covered a lot of content today, reviewing some of the accessibility features within the program, ways students can access, ways staff can access, different assessment tools, different instructional tools. If people have questions and they want to learn more, and they go to Schoology, are there any other avenues? Should they reach out to their literacy ISS? Should they reach out to their general ed teacher? How do we extend this learning if there's interest?
I think definitely working with your general education colleagues, because they may have discovered some tips and techniques of accessing things because they are utilizing these materials on a day-to-day basis. You can also definitely always reach out to your literacy ISS. There may be additional resources like tip sheets or other webinars that have been developed. And a third place I would even look is in the folder that's called Exploring Core Instructional Practices and Materials, Summer 2019. This was a Google course that we offered. And while we're not offering course credit anymore, the website is still up. And so when you go to the Google site, it actually brings you through several of the components of the curriculum.
Terrific resources. Appreciate your time today. Good luck, special education teachers, on your implementation and exploration of Benchmark Advanced. Let us know if you need any kind of follow-up training or have any suggestions for future webinars. It has been a pleasure. Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, Aaron.